Anti-Semitism is not always coming from the places we think it is coming from. Actually, sometimes some of the most unsuspecting people are actually espousing anti-Semitism, either deliberately or really unknowingly, not even realizing that the ideology that they're buying into is anti-Semitic, which is no pass, by the way, no justification. It only makes it a lot worse. Here's a conversation between two UK journalists discussing where the source of anti-Semitism is from currently in society, and the comments shared here are maybe you may find them very surprising. Here it is.
But I'm seeing this unfold, for example, on TV. I'm seeing Channel 4 just, I don't know about Prevent. I know about TV, though. I used to work in TV. I was told over and over as a white man I couldn't be on the screen anymore. And I was often rejected by people who had Arabic names. It's just something I've seen high up in production. Channel 4, who just released a documentary about Gaza, which I doubt will be two-sided. And as the Islamic population grows, look, I would be concerned if we had 4, 5, 6 million Hasidic Jews in this country, because I don't agree with everything in the Hasidic Jewish community. That's not to downplay everything in it, as I wouldn't downplay everything in the Islamic community. It's a number that is large enough. And we saw what happened in Lebanon. We saw in Iran what is happening now in Turkey, I think. Afghanistan, countries that were previously relatively secular, had some religion in them, had a bit of everything, that the population grew of Muslims, and it was, so without wanting to sound like a conspiracy theorist, are we at a point now where it's impossible to put the Jewish side forward, for example, or to put the non-Muslim side forward, because it's just the numbers are too high?
Well, it's long been impossible to put the Jewish side forward. Going back many years, I've personally found that from my experience. It's certainly true that we see more and more Muslim names in the media. And, one should not generalize. There are many Muslims who, are horrified by extremism of any kind, and who are perfectly decent people who are signed up entirely to Western values and all the rest of it. However, there's a very significant proportion of that community which is not signed up to Western values, and an even larger proportion, I'm afraid to say, which really hates Jews. And that is a major, major issue which nobody talks about, nobody in the Jewish community talks about in public. So that is there, and it's self-evident that if those numbers are growing, then this problem is going to grow. However, what my own experience of the refusal to put the Jewish side, or the Israeli side, I should say, predates that. It's nothing to do with the Muslim community. It's white liberals. It's white progressives who really, really, really hate Israel because they have imbibed a narrative, if you can imbibe a narrative, which they believe to be axiomatically true. And anyone who says it's not true is, in this case, not right-wing, they're a Jew, or they're a Zionist, which, for the purposes of this discussion, of that particular argument, is the same as saying they're a Nazi. It's like that. And these are white people, these are white progressives, and they've been like that for years. So, what you're saying, I'm sure, it's a point to consider, but it's not the main thing. The main driver of this is white progressive society, which is embracing the fundamental anti-Semitism of the Muslim community, which is far, far more pervasive than in any other sector of society. They're embracing it because it plays to their own narrative, particularly since so much of it is to do with Israel. And now it's becoming more and more brazen in being anti-Jew. And so, the progressive world is having a bit of trouble with this because it's quite hard now to process that. But they are managing to process it because they're managing to wrestle it round to the narrative that to which they are entirely wedded, and which defines them as moral beings. You know, this idea that the Israelis are fundamentally oppressive and aggressive, and the Palestinian Arabs are fundamentally their victims and only want good things like the rest of us, is so hardwired into progressive opinion that, in my view, it has produced a kind of moral deformation, a loss of moral compass, which goes far, far beyond the issues of the Middle East.
Bloody hell. I think, I mean, when we talk about the views in the Muslim community about Jews, in certain countries around the Middle East, I think it was Pew Research that found this, 97 to 99% of people have unfavorable views of Jews. So that's why I say that. I only repeat that now because I think people might go, what do you mean infiltrating? And I'd say to them, look, if you knew we were getting hundreds of thousands of people from countries where 97 to 99% of people have unfavorable views of your particular ethnicity, you might go, hang on, we better get out and do something.
Yeah. And of course, one can't talk about that because it's Islamophobic.
Yeah.
And we see, you know, the government is flirting. They keep flirting and then they keep retreating under fire. But they're flirting with the idea of criminalizing Islamophobia.
It's insane.
Yeah.
This is it. I mean, it's all well and good to have these luxury beliefs about, oh, don't say anything bad about. When you start to feel, when you have evidence, empirical evidence that your family is no longer safe in your own home country, that's when you go, well, screw your PC culture, screw your wokeness. This is serious now.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Jews in Britain and elsewhere who are under guard, have to be under guard, and their schools are behind barbed wire, and their synagogue doors are reinforced. And they are the people, you know, it's the Jews who are getting physically and verbally attacked all the time, to a degree, and intimidated. Now, there are people who hate Muslims, and there are people who hate Hindus and Sikhs, and people who hate anybody with a brown or black face. I mean, this is all terrible stuff, and this is true and real, and that's real prejudice. But, you know, Islamophobia basically says that it's illegitimate to ascribe any misdeeds whatsoever to anyone or anything in the Islamic world. And so it's a complete chiller. It's a totalitarian invention, masquerading as an attempt to eradicate prejudice on a par with eradicating anti-Semitism. But the result is you cannot talk about Muslim anti-Semitism. And the Jewish community leadership in this country is silent on it. What it goes on and on and on about is the need to fight Islamophobia, which is the same as anti-Semitism. This is the Jewish community leadership.
Pathetic.
Fascinating conversation that they're having. You know, what I find in many of the debates that are going on now around Israel is that people are entrenched in certain beliefs which they don't even reconsider. And so therefore there isn't really a dialogue or conversation going on. So there are people who actually believe that Israel is aggressive and they believe in using aggression to control people, which I know is not true. And if someone's entrenched in that idea and they're unwilling to revisit that, to consider that when you have terrorists coming into your country, murdering your family members year after year after year, so then, and you're trying to figure out how to stop it, then a very obvious solution is going to be something which will be aggressive, because you have to aggressively stop something that threatens your life. That's one of the it's one of the first places that one should be aggressive. Whereas the idea that the Arabs want peace and they don't want to be oppressed, they don't want to live in open air prisons and all of this is another perspective that people are entrenched in, and also needs to be revisited. Considering the fact that they were offered what they have been asking for at least 5 times. A Palestinian state was offered to them, quite mistakenly, but it still was. And they turned it down every time. And you have to ask yourself why. And the answer is because that's not what they want. They are a highly idealistic people who have been able to control their societies with enormous fear and intimidation and real aggression of abuse, torture, and murder of their own people, so that everyone will be terrified and will get onto the program of we have to be free from the river to the sea.